Welcome back to Our Money. Today, we're diving into the historically significant $500 Federal Reserve note. In 1913, President Woodrow Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act into law, establishing the Federal Reserve System as the central banking authority of the United States. Under this act, the Treasury's Bureau of Engraving and Printing manufactured Federal Reserve notes that were then issued to the 12 branches of the Federal Reserve System. The series of 1918 introduced the first $500 Federal Reserve notes with 16 distinctive varieties. Each variety represented a different Federal Reserve Bank and signature combination. The note showcased Charles Schlecht's engraving of John Marshall, founding father who became the fourth Chief Justice of the United States from 1801 until his passing in 1835. He stands as the longest-serving Chief Justice and the fourth longest-serving justice in U.S. Supreme Court history. Beyond his tenure on the bench, Marshall briefly served as Secretary of State under President John Adams and as a representative in Congress from Virginia. This distinguished service places him among the select few Americans who have contributed to all three branches of the United States government. At the top border, the note bore the title Federal Reserve Note. Emblazoned on it was the promise, "The United States of America will pay to the bearer on demand $500. Adjacent to Marshall's portrait on the upper left, an inscription informed the bearer, authorized by the Federal Reserve Act of December 23, 1913, as amended by Act of September 26, 1918. The series of 1918 label was prominently displayed on both the upper left and lower right corners. A distinct scalloped blue Treasury seal graced the right side of the note, and blue serial numbers were strategically positioned on the upper right and lower left sides adjacent to the portrait. Identification of the note's issuing bank involved several elements: a pairing of a number and a letter found near each of the four corners, the initial letter of the serial numbers, and the bank's distinct seal to the left of the design. The black bank seal would have read, "The Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, Massachusetts," for example. The first 12 varieties originated from the inaugural issuance by all Federal Reserve banks. For example, the seal marked with 1A pertained to the Boston branch. This note also displayed 1A on its four corners, and its serial numbers all began with the letter A. This pattern held for all branches: New York, 2B, Philadelphia, 3C, Cleveland, 4D, Richmond, 5E, Atlanta, 6F, Chicago, 7G, St. Louis, 8H, Minneapolis, 9I, Kansas City, 10J, Dallas, 11K, and San Francisco, 12L. Unfortunately, today there are no known examples from the Richmond branch in existence. All the first 12 varieties showed the signatures of Treasurer John Burke and Secretary of the Treasury Carter Glass. Interestingly, Federal Reserve notes were the only large-sized bills to have the signature of the Secretary of the Treasury, replacing the Register of the Treasury. The 13th variety originated from the San Francisco branch, bearing the signatures of Treasurer Burke and Secretary David Houston. This note is particularly rare, with only two known to exist today and the only image available being that of a specimen note. Other than the signatures, the general design remained unchanged. The last three varieties were associated with the branches in New York, Atlanta, and Kansas City. They featured the signatures of Treasurer Frank White and Secretary Andrew Mellon. While there are only 4 examples of the New York notes remaining, none are known to exist from Atlanta and Kansas City. However, there are no images available of these varieties. The reverse of the note, identical for all issues, displayed a vignette titled "De Soto Discovering the Mississippi." This engraving, created by Frederick Gersh, depicts Spanish conquistador Hernando de Soto, the first European to document the Mississippi River, discovering it on May 8, 1541. It draws inspiration from a painting by William Henry Powell called "The Discovery of the Mississippi" by de Soto AD 1541. In the painting, de Soto and his men approach the river, where Native Americans, including a chief offering a peace pipe, await them. Congress commissioned the painting in 1855 for the Capitol's rotunda. The upper border of the bill designated it as a Federal Reserve note. On the lower border, the obligation stated, "This note is receivable by all national and member banks and Federal Reserve banks and for all taxes, customs, and other public dues." It is redeemable in gold on demand at the Treasury Department of the United States in the City of Washington, District of Columbia, or in gold or lawful money at any Federal Reserve Bank. Thank you for joining us for another episode. Stay curious.